Welcome back to the Second and Two podcast with your boy TB, your host, and my dude Jody, co-host and executive producer extraordinaire. What's up, Jody?
What's good, man? Just, we're gearing up for another fun weekend, the divisional round of playoffs. But on the other hand of that means we're one step closer to losing football.
Yeah, well, football never really ends. Off season, there'll be plenty of stuff to look at. The off season, when you can sit around and actually look at like what are people really doing from a year long standpoint, like how do people evolve? That's kind of a fun thing. And then you got the draft and free agency, and you know how that goes. Football never stops, man. It's like Thanos; it's inevitable.
No,
But yeah,
I
I
feel
hear
you.
you. Yeah, we're it's sad at this time of year because you slowly get less games. Like all the games are
Yep.
magnified; they're all good, but yeah, you get less of them. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, we get the four, we get two each day, and that's normally we get at least four in a week, the minimum. We got
Mm-hmm.
Thursday, Monday, Sunday. And it just, it gets tough right now. But we'll go ahead and recap these games from last week that we all watch, and then we'll look ahead to the ones coming up this weekend.
Yeah,
So,
the divisional round. Some claim the divisional round is the best weekend of football of the year.
I mean, it should be theoretically. All these dudes,
The
they all
final
played
eight.
well enough to make it. Yeah, the elite eight, some would say. In some cases. But yeah, so looking at last week's games that ended, we had the Seahawks Niners first game of that weekend. The final to that game was 41-23. What are some things that stood out to you in that game, TB?
Well, it went pretty much. I think of all the games that I talked about, that was the game that basically went as close to how I thought it would go as possible. Right. I thought Seattle would come out and be competitive. I thought that Pete Carroll's too good of a coach, and they have too much pride and talent on that team to just come out and get
Just
you
roll
know
over.
mollywopped right away. Yeah, that wasn't going to happen. I know a lot of people thought that's what could happen, but it's not. I just didn't think that that's what would be the deal. Seattle was scrappy. They were up at the half, 17-16. Geno played pretty well in the first half, and I also thought that Brock Purdy. If you look at that game, I know everyone's on the Purdy hype train right now, and he's 7-0 or whatever he is right now, 6-0. And I think he's played really well, but I actually didn't think he played as well this week. I thought he played a little more erratic, which early in the game, I think Seattle took advantage of that a little bit, and then as the game went, a lot of those turned into big plays, and then San Francisco just pulled away, and they were just at that point their defense took over too. Seattle just couldn't move the ball offensively at a certain point, so went pretty much how I expected. But the one thing that that watching the film that I think we need to reel the Brock Purdy hype back in a little bit. I just think he got away with some erratic throws, where it looked like this great play, but if you really watch the film and where he threw the ball and what he was actually doing with his feet and things like that, I think there's some stuff he really needs to clean up going to, into this week against Dallas, because I think he's played so well that it's likely, he started feeling himself, right? He's trying to make
Yeah.
plays. And at the end of the day, his role, you got to think of, we have to think of this Niners offense like a basketball team. His role is as a distributor. He doesn't need to be a creator. And I think those are two different things, right?
Yeah.
Like I think of a distributor as a key role player who can get the ball to the best players in their spots, right? Like Derek Fisher was great at this with those Lakers teams, right? He was a distributor. Whereas the creator is someone that your offense flows around and they're the ones creating shots for other players. That's more like your Steve Nash, LeBron type player, right? LeBron is like the ultimate version of that, right? So bringing it back to football, you look at the Niners offense, they have playmakers, man. They have McCaffrey, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, right?
Too many weapons over there.
Even Jennings, like they've got plenty of guys. And so I think Purdy and that offense are at their best when it's just be a distributor, get the ball to those guys in their spots. And that's something that Jimmy G, despite, a lot of people kind of hating on him, that's something he did so well, and why the Shanahan offense worked so well with him at the helm, and why they were always able to win games, because he rarely beat himself by trying to do too much. He was just a distributor. He got the ball in the spots where his guys could do what they needed to do. And that's not hate on Jimmy G. It doesn't mean he couldn't play more than that or do more than that. It's just that he understood what that role was. And I think Purdy got outside of that a little bit this week, and he got away with it. But I do think if you play the right defense, which I will tell you, this Dallas defense, the way it's playing, that's the right defense. If he plays like that this week, you could see that show up in negative place now. So hopefully he can get that back together. And this is not to say that he's had a great run. So this is not, throwing shade. This is just, he's just got to clean some stuff up, because I think what may have looked like spectacular plays could have gone the other way. And he doesn't need to do that when their defense is as good as it is and the skill players around him are as good as they are. Just distribute, dog. Just get him the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I'll note from you talking about him being like erratic is I've seen him a couple times when he was scrambling. He would turn his back, scrambling out of the pocket to get out and try to make a play. And I was like, bro, one, you have no clue where anyone's running right now. And two, like you're running like 10 yards backwards to try to make a play, and then you're just throwing it out of bounds. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
At least
Those are
he
the
did
kinds of
that, but
plays.
it was still not a good look for him to, turn
Those
his
are
back in the open space. I thought it was wild.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, where that play can easily become, someone gets a hand on the ball while your back is turned, and now it's a fumble.
Yeah.
Or, you turn around and you're taking a hit as you're trying to release that ball, and now it's an interception or whatever. So, yes, those are the things that I would say, again, the difference between being a creator and a distributor. But credit to them, they won the game 41 to
Yeah.
23. So
Yeah.
realistically, we're nitpicking right now, and they've got a good matchup against Dallas this week, so which we'll get to.
Yeah, moving forward into game 2 on that same Saturday, we had the Chargers Jags in the night game. What a game, right? And the final was 31-30 to the Jags. That was something else. I was sitting there watching that with Johnny, and I there was a part of me knowing that the Chargers were going to lose after he like brought it up, and you brought it up too. You texted me about it, but I was like, I need the Chargers to win because all my bets are hindering on this game right now, and so it was a bad situation, But yeah, they were up 27-0. You texted me and was like, "Hey, Chargers finna Charger," and I said, "Well, at this point, you might as well call it falconing, right?" Because it's almost the same situation. Had there been a field goal on the board, I think it's the same exact thing at that point. But yeah, crazy game. Jaguars brought it back. Trevor Lawrence did terrible in like the first quarter, 4 picks. Finished with what, like 3 or 4 touchdowns. That 2-point conversion as well. And he was out there looking like Michael Jordan in Space Jam. It was something else. I want to hear what you had on your mind about
Um,
this game.
yeah, I mean, pretty wild. Obviously, the Chargers get up 27-0, and the Jaguars did score right before the half to make it 27-7. I just felt like as I was watching it, it never felt to me like the Chargers were just dominating the Jags. Like, it didn't feel like as I was watching it that the Chargers were somehow just this superior team. I thought it seemed like the Jags were just making mistakes, right? 2 of the Trevor
Mhm.
Lawrence picks were awful mistakes. I mean, the one where the Chargers are playing cover 2 and he tries to throw the under as it clears the backer, and he throws it right to the corner. Like, I guarantee you that's one, as soon as he let it go, he knew. He was, that's we've all had that moment where you do something and almost before you even done doing it, that was a mistake, what you just did, right? Whether that's like telling the wrong person your secret or shooting that shot that coach told you don't shoot it and
Yeah.
you were I was
The break
open.
coming in.
Yeah,
You just
it's
charge the
it's
basket, try to get the rebound.
yeah, it's exactly that. So it's like, everyone's been in that moment. I'm sure I guarantee you that's what he was feeling in that moment. So you had those kinds of plays, but then also just some bad luck, like the punt hitting their blocker's helmet on the punt return, where he just doesn't see it and the ball hits his helmet, and now it's a fumble and it's a muff punt for the Chargers, right?
Yeah.
Like there was a combination of so many things that happened so early and so quick that it just seemed like, okay, the score racked up, but when I watched the game and I was looking on the field, it didn't feel like the Chargers were dominating. And so I thought in real time that the Jags could come back. Like you said, I texted you. Now that was somewhat jokingly, but I also felt like it was very possible. That was like
Yeah.
not out of thin air. That was like, hey, the Chargers are not dominating this game. If the Jags can just right the ship, they'll be okay. I think the big one was after that muff punt, the Chargers get the ball in the red zone. On 3rd and goal, Herbert misses Keenan Allen wide open in the end zone. And at that time, it was 24-0. That would have made it 31-0. I think at that point, it wouldn't have mattered if the Chargers were dominating or not. It's 31-0. 31-0, we're now in the realm of, yeah, probably not going to happen today, right?
Yeah.
And instead, that's a field goal and it's 27-0. And then the Jags managed to score that touchdown before the end of the half. And now it's 27-7. And a 20-point lead is very, for a whole half, that's very
Still
surmountable,
doable.
right?
Yeah.
Very doable. And, despite winning the Chargers, despite winning the turnover margin, 5-0. I've never seen anything like that before. You would have thought like the Jags needed at least one turnover in the second half to come back. I figured they were going to get one of those, right? It never
Yeah.
happened. It never happened. What really was the version of that for them was the Chargers missing that kick. That's kind of the closest thing they got to a turnover, to get that extra possession. And so it's 5-0 in the turnover margin, but the Chargers couldn't run the ball. 5-0 in the turnover margin after I said it was a key to the game. I said 2 young quarterbacks, it was gonna be a key. Clearly it didn't matter. It didn't matter. I think Bosa, I had a note here that Bosa really messed up.
Yeah.
I regardless of the referee, regardless, you've got to maintain your composure there. Like, as a coach, I am never gonna blame the referee in that situation when I'm communicating with my player. Now, when I'm looking at the league and I'm looking at that referee, yeah, I'm talking about that. But when it comes to me talking to Joey Bosa, I'm telling Bosa, hey man, you have to maintain your composure there. You can't compound a mistake. Okay, the referee made a mistake. Don't give him the ammunition, to then go compound that. Don't
Yeah.
throw your helmet and slam it on the ground in frustration. We just can't, like, you got to have more emotional toughness in that moment, because that play really, I mean, I think we can
Like
say
it kick-started it.
it gave Jacksonville 2 points instead of 1
Yeah.
on that extra point, and the difference in the game was 1 point. So I'm not saying Bosa lost them the game, but I do think that penalty had a major impact. I mean, it's a tough loss for the Chargers, and I think Staley, Joe Lombardi, who is now fired,
Yeah.
Justin Herbert, Bosa, and then the Chargers O-line, the inability to run the football, all share culpability in that loss. That was a team effort. I know Charger fans are upset with Brandon Staley. I know they want to see him fired. I just personally don't believe that this all is on Staley. I think he's a really good young coach. It's his second year and they're in the playoffs. Yes, it's a frustrating loss for a franchise that has felt snake bitten at times. It has felt like they've had these kind of heartbreaks in the playoffs. So I understand the frustration from Charger fans. But from a coaching standpoint, I think Brandon Staley got better this year. Defensively, he's brilliant. And I think for them to fire him after 2 years would be pretty tough, because you're saying now you got to start over again for Justin Herbert. right? Who's
Yeah.
already had 2 head coaches now in 3 years. So I just don't think you'd want to add a third in 4 years, right? Now he will have another offensive coordinator, and someone was going to have to pay for that loss. That was going to happen because you don't lose a 27-0 lead in the playoffs without someone taking some blame. So, unfortunately for Joe Lombardi and the quarterback's coach, those 2 guys had to take the blame and got fired. And it is what it is. That's how that business works. But I do think there's some blame to go all the way around. But it's the future for LA is bright. I think Herbert will learn from some of these mistakes he made. He's got to make that throw to Keenan Allen in the back of the end zone. That's the killer instinct that you got to have to put the game away right then and there. And I think that offensively, they'll have a chance to go in a different direction, and maybe that suits Herbert better moving forward. So I don't think this is all bad. I understand that it stings for Charger fans, but I don't think it's all bad.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some things they got to look forward to still next year, I mean, they made playoffs for the first time in however long. They got a great young quarterback. Like you said, there's some building pieces they need to fill in going into the offseason, but at the end of the day, they still have a great team. They'll have Mike Williams back next year if he still has if he's still under contract. And so like I feel like that's another piece they're missing right there with them getting played in week 18 for no good reason. So there's a bunch
Yep,
of little minor things along the way that
and
led to
and
that.
that I'm glad you brought that up because that is, that's another thing that we could get on Staley about, and hopefully, and I would assume he'll learn from that, and that won't happen again. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of learning lessons that happen there. Moving on to the third game, that Dolphins Bills game. What'd you
Yes.
think?
So I'm gonna need a little bit more filling in from you because I was only looking at the box score. I couldn't catch much of this one
Okay.
realistically. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I do know the Dolphins were coming back and ultimately they lost, right? 34-31. But they were down significant amount. Probably think it was like 20-ish. I couldn't tell you exactly. But yeah, they made a great push in the second half and ultimately came up short.
Yeah. I want to first say the Dolphins and their coaching staff, Mike McDaniel. I mean, very impressive effort is what I would say. They were down 17-0 early, and at one point took a lead 24-20.
Mm.
And they really showed up. They played hard. I thought their defense scored a touchdown. Their special teams had a couple great returns that set up points, and those other areas of the game showed up to support a rookie quarterback starting a playoff game, as they should, as you needed them to. I said in keys to the game, the only way the Dolphins were going to be able to stay in it was if they could create pressure on Allen, create turnovers, and then run the football. They created pressure, they created turnovers. The problem was they couldn't really run the football like I thought they might be able to. And quite frankly, I think Mike McDaniel went into the game saying, hey, they're going to stack the box. We got to be able to throw. And early on, they had some great play action stuff where they were pushing the ball down the field. And honestly, Jalen Waddle had 2 drops and Tyreek had a drop. And it was very uncharacteristic of those guys because Thompson actually put a couple throws on the money. And I would say he by no means played perfect. He didn't even play as well as Bryce Purdy or Brock Purdy, right? And, I was thinking Bryce Young. We got coming in. Right. Anyway, I don't even think he played as well as Brock Purdy, obviously. And I just got through criticizing Brock Purdy, right? But I will say this, that I thought Thompson played better than you could have expected of that guy in that spot and what we saw the
Mhm.
previous 2 weeks with him in the game. So, McDaniel trusted the kid to make those throws. And honestly, there more times than not, he was making them. And they just early, they didn't capitalize on some of those opportunities. That's part of why they fell in that 17-0 hole. But then their defense and their special teams got them back in it. And like I said, they took a lead 24-20. The Bills scored 2 touchdowns to then go back up 34-24. And then the Dolphins scored a touchdown to make it 34-31. And it was 34-31 for I don't know, about the last 8 minutes of the game where it kind of just
Mm.
kept going. Okay, are the Bills going to finish it or are the Dolphins going to be able to come back? And at the end of the day, the answer was neither. It was just kinda the game was just kinda gonna go, right?
Yeah.
I don't think the Bills look good for a chunk of the game. I said Allen needed to avoid those sacks and the bad interceptions. I talked about his, interception numbers and losses this year. He's having an issue with fumbles now too. And he threw multiple picks in the game that kept the Dolphins in it. I think the Bills, they're just going to need to be a better football team against the Bengals next week if they want to win. If they want to win in the divisional round, they better show up and play better because they came out hard and then kind of fell flat in the middle of the game. So,
Yeah, no, I mean that you got to give our hats off to Guy Thompson. He what second, third game playing this year. He's not only just a rookie, but literally was the third string quarterback. Like the fact that he made it this close of a game is still very impressive, and I'm sure the Dolphins will love having Tua back next year when he's fully healthy. You know, and then they'll have that squad getting back together and looking to make a push for that playoff spot next year instead of just
yeah.
sneaking by at the very end, you know?
And make no mistake, there are no moral victories in the NFL. That doesn't exist. We can be impressed by Mike McDaniel's game plan and the effort, but I mean, even still with that, I mean, I'm looking at Thompson's final numbers. He went 18 for 45 for 220 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks, and he took 4 sacks. So again, it wasn't it wasn't like he was awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
there was definitely some of those incompletions very easily could have been completions, and he could have thrown for over 300 yards. But even with that, I mean, he still threw 2 picks. He's still taking too many sacks. So there's still a lot for the Dolphins to fix in the offseason. I don't think it is just
Just Tua.
quarterback.
Mm,
Certainly that was a big factor in this game. And maybe if they have Tua, they win the game. And then we're not talking about that. We're talking about them moving on. But they're definitely going to have to figure out a couple other things with their offensive line to support Tua if he is in fact back and able to play and
yeah.
everything like that.
So yeah, this next game is the one me and you both predicted to be pretty much a dogfight to the very end. No matter what happens. This is a good game. We got the Giants Vikings, and the Giants ultimately won 31-24. But let's just say it was they both had to fight tooth and nail, you know? It was the the Giants, I think, went in the half only down 7-3. Okay, so yeah, they I know they scored right before the half, and then I drove home. I was like, I gotta get there. And so yeah, me and Johnny watched the end of this game. And I don't know how much you want to fill in before I just skip to the end, so I'll let you go ahead and talk real quick.
I think I have a feeling what's coming. So yeah, I'll fill in. I think it was exactly what we expected. The game of the weekend. I mean, the Jaguars comeback was fun, but in terms of a game that was just very competitive and back and forth and just saw good football throughout, this was the game of the weekend. I think the Giants were the better football team throughout the game, though. I mean, the Vikings were right there with them. It
Mhm.
wasn't by any means a dominating win, but it was consistent that the Giants were better. I thought in every big moment, the Giants showed up and played better. I picked them, and I felt confident in that pick despite the Giants being on the road. But Daniel Jones played better than I could have ever imagined. That guy surpassed
Yeah.
every expectation I had for him. If he's going to keep playing that way, I'm going to be honest, the Giants could beat anybody left because they're one of the best coach teams in the league right now. I want to give major credit to Wink Martindale, the Giants defensive coordinator, because I said a key to the game was whether or not the Giants were going to be successful in their blitzes, right? We even
Mhm.
diagrammed that whole play with them bringing
Yeah.
5 and playing 4 under 2 deep coverage behind it and all fire zones. Yeah. Wink Martindale loves this stuff, right? And I said, how is he going to do it? When's he going to do it? He's going to do it. How is he going to change it up? How are they going to scheme it up so that Justin Jefferson isn't getting one-on-ones? You know what they said? They just changed tendency completely. They completely changed their defense. They just didn't. They didn't blitz. They
Yeah.
blitzed at their second lowest rate all season. I mean, they average 44% blitz rate, which means basically
Wow.
half their plays they're blitzing, half their plays, which is it's unbelievable, right? And instead they were like, we're only going to blitz 23% of the time. It was like Wink was like,
There's a couple plays.
2 out of 10, 2 out of 10. I'm going to send pressure. I mean, that's to be someone who's like, all right, I'm going to send pressure half the time to, now I'm going to only do it 20% of the time, and I'm going to kind of bite my tongue and let my guys. But that was the thing. His guys up front were eating. Like
Mhm.
Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence were eating. They were winning one-on-one matchups. And if the Giants are going to have Daniel Jones play like he did, and those 4 up front are going to be able to create pressure without sending the 5th or 6th guy all the time, I'm telling you, the Giants are super dangerous, man. They're getting better at the right time.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to hype them up too much, but I really think they have a real shot to beat Philly. And we're not there yet. And I know I want to let you do your thing about Kirk Cousins right now, so I'll let you go. But I'm the Giants showed me something that I didn't know they really had. I was confident in that pick, but I came out of that game feeling like, ooh, the Giants are a real contender now. They got real stuff to them.
Yeah, no, I mean, speaking of our guy Daniel Jones, he rushed 72 yards, bro, and threw for like another almost 200, I believe. So yeah, he's definitely putting in work with the legs, with the arm. But I just want to fast forward to the last play, or not even the last play, but that last drive for the Vikings, man. How is this guy Kirky Cuz gonna go and throw a check down on 4th and long to the tight end? Not close to the sticks at all. I think he was only like a yard or two above the scrimmage, and then let him try to get the first. I thought that was insane. All the games that we've seen all year, he's going this guy Justin Jefferson. He didn't do it. Granted, I'm sure it's probably double, triple covered, but at the end of the day, that's your guy, bro. If you're relying on him all year to make these plays, and you panic and throw the check down, I thought that was absurd. And frankly, who knows what was going on in his head? Maybe it was pressure from he felt pressure from the line, right? Or he ultimately thought it was still 3rd down or something and not 4th. I don't know.
Um, I mean, I think it's hard because, and I actually haven't watched the all 22 clip of this yet, so I can't tell you what he saw yet. Because in the broadcast, you couldn't really see what was going on downfield. You almost never can. That's always the
Yeah.
thing that drives me nuts when you're watching the broadcast is you really can't see the angle to see coverage. That's why the all 22 is great because you can actually see it. So I haven't watched the all 22 yet of that particular play, but I can tell you this. There's as a quarterback, you go through your progressions, right? And you make the throw that your progressions tell you to throw. So I don't know if he had pressure and nothing is open down the field. So in his mind, my best bet is to get the ball to my tight end and see if he can break a tackle, get a first down,
Oh,
as opposed to he liked that option, as opposed to the probability of me just hucking one up and a guy just snagging it out
making
of
him
the air.
play. Yeah.
So I don't know. That maybe is giving him too much credit because at the same time, I could also make the argument that yes, we want to go through our progressions, but we also have to have an understanding of time, situation, and the moment. And sometimes you just have to rip a throw that you probably shouldn't make, and you trust your arm to fit a ball in a window. I mean, that's why you're an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
So, and yes, I agree with you. If it were me, I mean, everyone saw the Bills game earlier this year.
Yeah.
The ball he threw on 4th and 18 to Justin Jefferson out of straight desperation on triple coverage, Justin Jefferson came down with that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I do lean back towards exactly what you're saying is I don't know where Justin Jefferson was on that play. I don't know who's covering him. I don't know how many people were covering him. But if I'm Kirk Cousins, I'm probably just going to go to that guy regardless and hope he makes the play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to say that, but it's when we see and when we can play the results game after seeing it play out how it played out, right? If Hawkinson breaks that tackle and gets the first down, no one's ever talking about it. It's just
Yeah.
like
No, you're not
a
wrong.
play that's forgotten. So, because that play happens more often than people think, where a quarterback does throw it short of the sticks on 4th down, but his playmaker makes the play for him.
Yeah.
So I I don't know. like I said, I got to watch the play before I could really say I can critique it and say he should have done this or he should have done that. And I'm sure hindsight being 2020, Kirk probably would have done something different. But yeah, that was a tough way for them to lose for sure. It was a tough look. I
Yeah.
will agree with you there.
But yeah, it was definitely a fun one to watch.
I was just going to give you Daniel Jones' final stat line. He went 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 78 yards rushing. Saquon only rushed for 53 yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. And Saquon, it didn't have his best day, but like when they needed him to, he went and got those scores near the goal line. And then the other guy I was really impressed with was Isaiah Hodgins. This guy wasn't even on their team until November. And I'm telling you, call me crazy if you'd like, but when he runs around out there and wearing the cleats he's wearing and the binky mouthpiece and kind of his like long, slender frame, he looks like Odell to me. Just like
Oh,
his body type and stature and the way he runs and everything
yeah,
looks a lot like Odell to me. I'm not saying he's the second coming of Odell. Don't freak
yeah,
out on me right now. I'm just like that's what I was like, man, that guy looks like Odell Beckham to me. So
yeah.
he's playing really well too.
I mean, that is where he started. So yeah, I'll just mention this now. It was leading up to what led to ultimately the Vikings losing. I wrote it down for a key in their game coming up this week. But you can't be dropping those balls, bro. My guy was open across the middle, no
Oh,
one
Slayton.
around him.
Yeah.
He gets that first. They put it away. Then they don't have to worry
It
about.
it was hilarious because before that play, I was watching that game with my dad and a friend, and I said to both of them, "Oh, the Giants have to run that. They've been hitting the under all day long." I was like, "The under's going to come open. Just wait for it to pass open through the backers." Because the Vikings were playing zone coverage. You knew what they're going to play. I mean,
Yeah.
it was there. It was exactly what they wanted. He cleared it. He was wide open. Like, uh, it was. Yeah, he dropped it, and you could tell he was upset. But they won the game, so he'll
Yeah.
get another shot at it.
Yeah. That's for sure. So yeah, let's move forward to that Sunday night game, Ravens Bengals rematch from the week prior. We got 24-17 on that final for the Bengals. Let's see what. Well, quick note: our Johnny's homie he worked with, our guy Mashoud, his brother's on the Bengals. He got to start this week because their guy went down last week. So yeah, shout out to Hakeem. He was playing right tackle.
Nice.
Uh, yeah, no Ravens. They surprised me for sure. Our guy Huntley performed when he needed to. It was another dogfight in this game, a divisional matchup. So like you could, they all know what to expect in each of these games, and that defense definitely came up. But ultimately, it came down to I don't want to fast forward. Do you want to get in before I fast forward to what happened?
Now go ahead, set the
All
stage because
right.
I'm not even going to talk about it just
Okay,
because it's been
okay.
talked about so much. So you go ahead with that one.
All right, yeah. So this was a guy was looking for dog of the week had we gave out awards. Or not dog, our lineman, big fella. It goes to oh man, what was it?
Sam Hubbard.
Henderson, Hubbard,
Hubbard.
yeah, Hubbard, yeah. He had that 99-yard touchdown off the fumble, bro. Crazy. And some may say there could have been a little block in the back at the end. Could have been irrelevant. Who knows? But yeah, the big man taking it the length of the field to
We
put
love a
them in
big
the
fella
lead. Yeah,
touchdown.
yeah. No, I gotta get those in there before I let you take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big story coming out of the game, you could hear it from Harbaugh, you could hear from J.K. Dobbins. It's a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda for the Ravens. Like, well, if we had gone low on the sneak, or well, if Lamar had played,
Yeah.
well, if we had managed the clock better, well, if we had just caught the ball off the tip. Well, I mean, I just think a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda. I think the Ravens feel probably like they left a lot on the table this year just because of
Hmm.
how everything played out. I mean, Huntley played well, 17 to 29, 226 yards, two touchdowns, one pick. He had 54 yards rushing. I mean, it's not Lamar, but it was good enough to win the game, to be quite frank
Hmm.
with you. They played well. They had a lot of opportunity to take control of the game on the road. And I think I saw a lot of people. One thing I wanted to talk about was I saw a lot of people angry at Harbaugh's clock management at the end of the game because he wasn't using his timeouts and they were huddling and they were kind of letting a lot of clock go.
Yeah.
And the criticism probably is justified in terms of I think he probably played it just a little too slow. At the same time, I think it was very clear. He said, "We're not going to let Joe Burrow get the ball again. We're
Yeah.
down 24-17. The game is going to end with the ball in our offense's hands. Either we won't score or we're going to score." And I'm pretty sure if they had scored, they would have gone for two. I'm just being
Mm.
honest. I think he said my
Yeah.
defense played as well as it could have. And I know that guy over there is a stone cold killer. I'm not going to let him get the ball back. So I don't want to score with a minute left and give that guy a minute to go drive the length, go drive
Yeah.
50 yards and kick a game winning field goal. It's just, I don't want to do that. So I think he was it's almost like, people play Madden where you're like trying to strategically play the clock so that you let time run off so that your
Yeah.
opponent can't get it back and score after you do. Cause it's almost like these guaranteed scores in Madden. I think he was playing Madden a little bit that way, but he probably was a little too cool with it. You know what I mean? He probably let a little bit too much time go. But I understand why he wasn't using his timeouts. I think they just probably took too much time in the huddle. They should have probably still been a little bit more hurry up mode. I don't mind them running the ball, but I think ultimately that holding penalty on that run, that first and 20, killed the drive anyway. And the
Yeah.
time at that point it didn't matter. They couldn't get anything going after that point. And so that just didn't give them a chance to actually get that done. And I would have liked to have seen if they had scored. I think they would have gone for two. Just I felt the vibe of that game. I felt the vibe of the way he was playing the clock. I think that's what he was trying to play for. But ultimately, the Bengals move on to Buffalo this week,
Mhm.
and that's a game I can't wait to talk about.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, well, we'll fast forward to Monday night now. Cowboys Bucks. Let's just say my heart hurts. Thought Tom Brady was gonna be Tom Brady. We both talked about it, and that wasn't the case. My guy just looked like an old man. I don't know if he was tired or what, but the throws he was making too short. They were behind the receiver. Just wasn't clicking with nobody really, besides like Mike Evans. And playoff Lenny, my guy was non-existent. He got like 4 touches. Couldn't punch it in from like the 4. It was sad all around watching that game. I'm sure they're glad they made it to the playoffs, but it wasn't what they expected at all in that game.
Yeah, I mean, this is the only game of the weekend that I went 5-1. Not to toot my own horn or whatnot, but it started. The crazy thing is, it even started exactly how I thought it would. Right, Dallas getting out to a lead, looking real good.
Yeah.
Maher's missing 4 extra points, so there's still
Oh
like a little
Lord.
bit of like, ooh, is Dallas gonna blow this? Right, like I really thought they would. And the problem was Brady and the Bucks never actually got themselves going,
Yeah.
and really they ended up just looking overmatched the whole time. Their defense was not impressive. I just didn't think their defense played well. They got 2 3-and-outs to start the game, and then after that, very unimpressive. Yeah, Brady looked old for the first time in his career.
Yeah.
He finally looked old. And credit to the Cowboys for proving everybody wrong, winning on the road. I just thought it was a really impressive performance from Dak, but an even more impressive performance from Dan Quinn's defense, which is why I think that San Francisco Dallas game, that's going to be a fun one too. But we'll talk about it when we get there.
For sure. You want to kick it off into this week, or you still got
Let's
a little
do
bit
it.
on the week? All right.
Divisional round preview,
All
baby.
right.
Let's go.
So
Best weekend of the year.
kicking off the weekend, we got Jags Chiefs Saturday at 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 over here. You know what I mean? Got it.
Mm-hmm.
I got that on my notes. I see your notes have the Eastern. uh, let's see. They played earlier in the year. It was 27-17 Chiefs in that game. Quick couple stats for you. Jags have won 6 games in a row since, they needed to win all those to get to the playoffs. 2 of those were within 5 points. And let's see, a quick couple notes I got. I have the Chiefs are rested. Could be good, could be bad. People always talk about the rust because you get that extra week of just downtime.
Mhm.
Let's see. I'd like to see them get Juju involved. I think that's huge. Obviously, their guy is Travis Kelsey, but they could get Juju rolling. That's at least 2 weapons on top of their running back. And then for the Jags, I wrote down they need to force Patty Mahomes to stay in the pocket. Don't let him scramble around. Get those bombs down the field that he always does. And then the question: are they tired? 6 in a row. They've all basically been win and you go to the playoffs, or if you lose that chance. So
Mhm.
that's another question I'd like to just put out there. See if it plays out in the game or not.
Yeah. I think it's a great, obviously, a game of, two good quarterbacks, Lawrence and Mahomes. But I also think it's this unbelievable coaching match. It's a great coaching matchup. Andy Reid and Doug Peterson, right? Two former Eagles coaches, very familiar with
Mhm.
each other. And I think the storyline in this is the exact kind of team we've seen Kansas City struggle to beat in recent years in the playoffs specifically. Like the young talented quarterback,
Yep.
the aggressive coach, and then that opportunistic defense. So if you just go back last year, who did they lose to? Okay, the Bengals in 2022, right? Okay,
Mhm.
young dynamic quarterback Burrow, aggressive head coach Zach Taylor, opportunistic defense that created turnovers. Yep, Lou Anarumo's defense, right? The year before, okay, the Browns. That was Baker Mayfield, right? And Stefanski. And then that defense with Myles Garrett, right? Now, the Chiefs beat them ultimately, but they had to struggle to win that game, if you remember, right? In the
Yeah.
divisional round. And then even 3 years ago, go back to the Texans in 2020 when the Texans were up 24-0 in the AFC Championship game in Arrowhead before the Chiefs ultimately did come back and win that game, right? But again, that was Deshaun Watson with who's my guy at I'm completely blanking. He's the OC at Alabama now, was the head coach there.
Oof.
Was that the head coach at Penn State before that? He's interviewing to be the Patriots OC right now. I'm completely blanking on his name. My apologies. It'll hit me. Anyway, he was the head coach. And then uh, their defense, same thing. They created a lot of turnovers, right? So this, this team fits the mold of some of those teams that have given Kansas City trouble and made them play, right? Where they either they won, lost the game in overtime last year. So I think Lawrence and Peterson with that defense have the ability to make this game fun. When it comes to keys to this game, I want to ask, okay, number one, can Trevor Lawrence avoid the early turnovers that plagued him in the wild card? And when you mentioned they played in the regular season, when they played in the regular season, Kansas City got out to like a 20-7 lead pretty early, right? And
Yeah.
so I don't think the Jags can afford to just come out here and fall behind like they did in the wild card. And Trevor Lawrence throws a couple picks to start the game. They can't do that to Kansas City. Kansas City will put them away, right? So you can't afford to do that. Number two, can Kansas City start fast and avoid the slow start against the underdog? That seems to
Yeah.
be an annual thing for them now, as I just kind of went through the last 3 years, right? Can
Yeah.
they avoid that slow start against an underdog and relying on, well, we're at home, we'll come back, right? I would anticipate this is a thing they're really stressed this week because it cost them in the AFC Championship game last year. They fell, the previous 2 years they fell behind, but they're like, okay, we're good. We can come back and win these games. And they were able to do that before. And so last year when that happened, I think okay, we're good. And then they actually lost. And it showed them like, hey, as a coach, you probably look at that and say, hey, this is a learning moment. This is why we can't do this. We
Yeah.
can't always allow ourselves to be the team coming from behind. We need to start fast and be ahead. And then the last thing is, I want to know which coach is going to be more creative in their game plan this week. I mean, these are two coaches like you saw a few weeks ago, Kansas City's running the ring around the rosy play, right? And in the playoff game, Doug Peterson's calling like a tee back formation on 4th and 1 to get ETN out the back door outside to set up the game winning field goal. Like these are two very creative head coaches, and so whichever one is more creative, I think could could put their team potentially over the top. I do have one play to break down for this game. I want to look at a play from when we're talking about that creativity and the design of an offense. I want to look at a play from the wild card round for the Jaguars, right? You see this okay?
Yeah, we're good. I just wanted to mention, was the coach you're talking about Bill O'Brien?
Thank you, Bill O'Brien. I'm sorry, Bill. Completely forgot your name, buddy. My bad. Bill O'Brien. I knew it started with a B. I don't know why I kept wanting to say Brian as his first name, but I knew it wasn't right. Thank you. So Bill O'Brien.
Yeah.
Anyway, point being, we look at this play. This was the Jaguars' third touchdown or second touchdown in this game in the third quarter as they're kind of mounting their comeback. And I wanted to break it down because I just thought it was such a huge play in the game. It's 1st and 10 from the 39-yard line going in. Jacksonville's going to line up in a 3-by-1 formation, right? And we've talked about this before. What 3-by-1 means: 3 receivers to one side, 1 to the other. So they're going to have 3 receivers to the top of the screen, to the right-hand side, with Christian Kirk as the number 3 spot and Zay Jones at the number 2 spot, Marvin Jones up top at the number 1 spot. And then backside, they got the tight end, a nub side tight end. I believe that's Evan Ingram, right? So we call that nub side again because there's no one outside of him, right? It's just Evan Ingram in line by himself. So 3-by-1 here. The Chargers are going to play a variation of what we call essentially quarter, half. They're in a split field coverage. This is something we talked about before. Brandon Staley loves split field coverages, and we'll get to exactly how they're playing this. But this is the scenario we have. Trevor Lawrence, you don't see this on this version of the tape here because it's cut so short, but Trevor Lawrence actually gets to the line, recognizes and understands what he's seeing from the defense, has this check that he and Doug Peterson have gone over this week, and checks to the route concept he wants versus this coverage look, right? So the Jags, like I said, they're in a formation we call triples here, right? With the 3-by-1 with the backside tight end by himself. So what he checks to is a variation of what we call smash. Really, it's going to be the seam concept with it, right? So on the bottom of the screen, Evan Ingram, the tight end by himself, is just going to run a 10-yard out route. All right. Number 3, Christian Kirk, is going to run the curl right over the ball at about 12 yards. Zay Jones is going to run what is the seam ball, right, away from the safety to the opposite hash. He's going to push it to the opposite hash as far as he can go. It's just the seam ball, but he's going to really bend it inside. And then Marvin Jones is going to run the 12-yard curl at the top, right? So it's 2 curls sandwiched in between with the seam ball route and then an out route down to the bottom. And that will make sense here in a second when I talk about what the Chargers are playing, right? So the Chargers are playing a variation of quarter, half, split read, split field coverage, right? To the top of the screen, to the 3 receiver side, they're playing a variation of cover 2, right? So the corner is going to play in the flat. He's the flat defender. You're going to have 2 hook defenders inside of 2 and 3. And then you're going to have the read 2 deep half defender from the safety. Now to the backside or the bottom side of the screen, they're going to play, that's the quarter part, right? And really in this way and the way it plays out, because they're a pattern matching team, they're really going to play man, essentially. So the corner is going to take the tight end by himself. Kenneth Murray, the backer, is going to take Travis Etienne, the back, by himself. And then Derwin James is going to look up number 3 vertical. If number 3 goes vertical, he's got him. If he sits it down, now he can play free, and this backer can take him. Now, this is going to be super important here in a second. So now if we stop it here, we can see that the out route is taking the bottom side corner, who's in that quarter version of the field. It's going to take him away. Number 3, Christian Kirk, runs at Derwin James vertical. So it forces Derwin James to take him because he runs across the backer's face and he's running vertical. Derwin James has to respect that. So he's going to take that, right? To the cover 2 side, right? The half side, we've got the hook defender who's carrying this, but he's going to see, okay, this receiver is going to sit it down. So he's actually going to come off of it, right? Because that's his window, that's his zone. The half field
Mm.
play or the cover 2 corner, he's got to sit on this, right? So they're going to sandwich that one. These two are sandwiching that one. He's one-on-one. Now he's one-on-one on the back. And the read 2 safety, you'll see he's supposed to be on top of number 2 here. But number 2 is running this route so far. Remember, I told you he's going to run to the opposite hash. He's running this thing so far away from him, he can't get there. So if we rewind it a little bit, look at the safety's movement, right? Just really watch the safety here. He's going to pedal outside to the half. He really weaves outside. So now he's about 3 yards outside of number 2, which is tough because when you're in a 2-read concept like that, you really should be inside of number 2 because you got to be able to play, 2 to 1 essentially. Because if 2's running vertical just like he does and he crosses your face, this is the easiest ball for Trevor Lawrence to throw. You got to
Yeah.
make him throw the outside ball because the corner will always carry underneath the outside vertical. So you can't let him throw this ball. He pedals outside. This guy runs the perfect route that Trevor Lawrence checked to. I guarantee you, in film study, they said, hey, if we get quarter, half, or this 21 look, right? 2 to the field, 1 to the boundary, we get that look, we're going to check to this route concept. I guarantee you this was Doug Peterson. He's an offensive wizard here. And Trevor Lawrence is smart enough to see it, check to it, and it's a touchdown. I mean, and it's a wide open touchdown. And this is the kind of thing where people are, man, how did that guy end up so open against a real NFL defense? Like, well, because,
And that safety
the
was so
safety just didn't.
outside. He had so much room to make up. It was just too late.
Exactly. Thank you. Right. So because the Jaguars study film, they check to something that they know, and it's not something that the Chargers couldn't cover. Like, this isn't like a schematic hole. This is just, hey, if you're drawing up the toughest route concept for this coverage to cover, that's probably it, especially when there's a technique error by the safety who pedals outside. I can tell you as a secondary coach, if you're in a read 2 look, you can't pedal outside number 2. You'll get beat across your face every time. And so there you go. That's what happened. So really, it was a combination of a great offensive and a technique error by that safety. You look up front, the Chargers are going to come in an over front, but they're going to run what we call toss. So essentially, it's going to toss to an under front on the fly. And you'll see Sebastian Joseph Day is going to become from the B gap player as the 3 technique to the A gap player. And the 1 technique is going to go to the B gap, which you can see how the backers are lined up, right? Drew Tranquil is actually a B gap defender with this coverage, and Kenneth Murray is actually an A gap defender with this coverage. And you can see how by their alignment, how
They're
that works up,
stacked.
right? Yeah, they're stacked essentially right now. So somehow it's gonna show up the other way, which is what happens. The Chargers only rush 4. You'll see the Jags O-line pick it up, and then you can also see from this angle, Derwin James, his eyes, how they're peeled to number 3 the whole time. It's great look, right? So you can see the D-line, boom, boom, getting over the top in the toss look, and now here you can see Derwin James's eyes, right, are looking at number 3 the whole time. So he can never come off of that. Theoretically, right, when Christian Kirk sits it down like this, theoretically, he could pass that off and be free and let the backer sort of look that up and then try and get depth and read the quarterback's eyes. But there was just no way that was going to happen here. That route, Christian Kirk's route took him too deep. So it was going to be really
Yeah.
hard for him to do that. But again, really what I'm saying is look at how the time Trevor Lawrence has to throw and look at the pocket that he's throwing from. So ultimately, yes, it's a technique error by the safety, but also the Chargers didn't create any pressure. No one up front won their one-on-one. The Jags offensive line did a great job of just giving him a clean pocket to throw from. Then you get a beautiful ball. Boom. Touchdown, right? So I think that kind of look is going to be really critical, or that kind of, schematic creation is going to be really critical for the Jags and whether or not they can, maintain in this game. Ultimately, I think the Chiefs are a better football team, despite the Jags being fun. And I think I'm going to go with Chiefs 35, Jags 26.
Yeah, my score prediction, I went Chiefs 31, Jags 27. So yeah, looking forward to Saturday night. We got that divisional matchup of the Giants and Philly. They played twice this year, as they always do, and the Eagles won both of those. Um, for my key notes for this game, the Eagles are looking to get a few players back, hopefully. One being, of course, Jalen Hurts and possibly some defensive people. Um, they need to stop the run, whether it be Saquon and or Daniel Jones. Got to get him to pass the ball more as opposed to get outside the pocket and run for some yards. That was another theme I had for the whole weekend in general. Is just there's a lot of mobile quarterbacks this week, so everyone's going to be playing spy, QB spy, as best as they can. And then for the Giants, I mentioned it earlier about Slayton. They just need to catch the balls, whether they're open or the classic. If it hits your hands, you should catch it. That's one thing I think that ultimately can hurt them. And they just need to play good defense for their DBs. They have a lot of weapons in Philly with Devontae Smith, Brown. Like there's a lot of dudes out there that could uh, make plays deep. So also that comes down to the rushers with Thibodeau and everyone else up there putting pressure on whatever quarterback is playing.
Yeah, I think despite the Eagles sweeping them this year, I mean, that last game didn't mean anything for the Giants, and they sat their guys.
Yeah.
So I think the Giants are coming into Philly really confident. I think, like I said, they should be because they're peaking with their key young players at the right time. I mean, I know I Vikings game, but I really did see a lot of things that I thought were really positive come playoff time. Their pass rushers are eating. They don't have to bring pressure if they don't want to now, but they still can. They still have that flexibility, and they know they're good at it if they want to do it. Daniel Jones is playing his best football. They won a game where Saquon didn't rush for even 60 yards. They had two guys in their receiving core that one that hit 100 and one that was at like 88. They almost had two 100-yard receivers in one game. Those are all things that for the Giants, you would have been surprised, I think, if you had said that about a month ago, right? And so the fact that they're gelling and playing this way at the right time, I think should give them a lot of confidence. At the same time, Philly was the most consistent team in the NFL all year.
Mm.
Jalen Hurts should be pretty healthy at this point. I heard that Lane Johnson says he's playing, and he seems to be on track to do that. Robert Quinn appears to be playing as well. He's back as a limited participant in practice. So you put all that together, and this has the makings of, again, like should be a really good game. I think it should be a really, really good game, really competitive. I expect it to be one of the better games of the weekend. My first question, my first key to this game is, can Daniel Jones keep up his stellar play from the wild card round? We talked about his stat line, we talked about everything, but even just more so than anything else, just his look and the confidence that he was displaying as he was playing, it felt like he was saying, "Yeah, give me the ball. I'm ready. I want to go do it." And I think that's what you have to have from your quarterback at this time of the year. If you don't have that guy, you're not winning. So the fact that he's playing like that and he's acting like that too is a really obviously positive sign for them. And can he keep doing that? Obviously would be huge. Number two, I want to know which team's going to win the run game because these were the number 4 and number 5 rushing teams in the league this year. The Giants at number 4, the Eagles at number 5. So very likely it's strength on strength here. Which team is going to be able to run the football better? Because they also both do a decent job of stopping the run. So whichever team can run the ball better, going to be a huge key in this game. And that's the great thing about it is both of them, it's Daniel Jones and Saquon, and it's Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders. So you got to stop the quarterback and the running back both ways. And then my last key is, what does Wink Martindale have in store for Jalen Hurts this week, and how does Hurts respond? I think Wink, obviously, I talked about this. Guy was a chameleon this past week. He changed his defense on the fly, let his pass rushers eat, didn't bring as much pressure. On the other side, I think Jalen Hurts is one of the smartest, most dedicated quarterbacks in the league right now. There's a reason he came back this year and was as good as he was. He made a significant jump from year
Mm-hmm.
2 to year 3, right? And that doesn't just happen. I think Jalen Hurts, by all accounts, is one of the hardest working dudes that you'll be around. I think he's extremely smart. He's a coach's son. So I think Wink can, it's just a great battle of like Wink can throw a bunch of stuff at him. I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen could get him though. You know what I mean? And find the matchup that he wants if they're pressuring. Find Devontae Smith or find AJ Brown or find, Goddard, whoever it is, right? It'll be very interesting to see that chess match between those two, coach and then quarterback. But ultimately, I'm picking the upset here. I'm going Giants 23, Philly 21. This isn't to say that I think Philly isn't good. I think Philly is really good. I just think the Giants are peaking. I am confident in that team. I saw a lot. It wouldn't surprise me, obviously, at all if Philly wins. I think they're clearly capable of getting to the Super Bowl. But I also think the Giants are that good right now. So I'm picking the Giants 23, Philly 21.
Yeah, for my prediction, I went Philly 27, Giants 20. I don't know. I feel like I kind of want to change it to 24 for the Giants, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
I convinced you. I made a convincing enough argument
Yeah,
to
yeah,
bring the
yeah.
score closer.
Yeah, yeah. No, but I mean, no, it's definitely going to be one of the better games for sure. Like I said, it's another divisional game. They know what to expect. They got all the film on these dudes in the world, like it's going to be a great game
No,
for
there are no
everyone.
secrets at this time of the year. There are no
Yeah.
secrets. You are who you are. As much as you want to, you can change up, you can game, you can scheme, you can bring new things to the table. But your players are your players, and what you do is still what you do in a framework, right? So yeah, there are no secrets.
Yeah. I'm a little sad about this next game, bro. Just in terms of the time and when it starts. Like we got an early weekend on Sunday. We got 3 Eastern, noon over here. Like that's so unheard of. Like, granted, it's better than the 10 a.m. on during a normal week, but it just seems so early. I'm not. I'm not.
Well, they do this every year, right? Where it's like later on Saturday.
Yeah.
It's to get people in the window of their like weekend to like kind of
Mm,
stack the games, the 4 games sort of back to back to back.
yeah. No. So yeah, we got Bengals, Bills, 3 Eastern, and I don't know if I should even call this one that they played earlier in the year. I don't. It's a tough situation. It they attempted. I don't know, but yeah, we know what happened last time. They had the Damar Hamlin situation. Like, and I believe this is being played in a neutral zone, right? Like a neutral stadium. No, the
Buffalo.
Buffalo. All
Mhm.
right, and so I mean that voids what I wrote down. I thought they were playing in Atlanta for some reason.
That's the AFC Championship game if it's Buffalo versus KC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, for this game, my keys I wrote down. I got Bills getting pressure on Burrow. I talked about it a little bit earlier. O line's a little banged up. They allowed, I believe, like 4 sacks last week. But this also goes in hand with what I think about they lost Von Miller, That's a key pass rusher. They brought him in obviously to do just that. And so we'll see how that works out. I need the Bills in my eyes to establish a run game. That's one thing they've struggled with a lot of the year. I mean, there's been games they've done it, but it's not often that we see that from them. And then the Bengals, like I said, it is a weekend of good running quarterbacks containing Josh Allen. He's a scrambler. He mentioned it earlier. He's been having some trouble with turnovers, whether that be fumbles or picks. So that's another thing they could look for an opportunity. And Buffalo, this is some crazy. Here's some more stats I wrote down finally. Buffalo's on an 8-game win streak with
Hmm.
the cancellation in there. And the Bengals, on the other hand, they're on a 9. Same deal. So yeah, both been real streaky.
Yeah. I think when you look at this game, focus is, I mean, obviously there's going to be a huge chunk of it on Damar Hamlin and what happened the last time they played, like you said, or attempted to play. And so as a result, this is going to be an emotionally charged game. And I
Mm,
think both teams feel like they have a lot to prove, both because of how the last game ended and what happened with seeding, and also because of the perception that they both underperformed despite winning the games last week. Now, I'm just going to put this out there, like newsflash, it's hard to win a playoff game. I don't care if you're playing against Skylar Thompson or Tyler Huntley. I don't care. It's hard to win in the playoffs. It's hard to win an NFL game, period. Right? It's hard to win, man, and let alone in the playoffs. So I don't care that yes, they didn't look as good as you wanted them to look, but they won. They're in the divisional round. They're here. And so now that we're here, Burrow versus Allen, it's a matchup of two very good and also very different kinds of quarterbacks. I think I'm just really excited to see these two match up, just like it was when you got to see Mahomes versus Allen last year, right?
mm-hmm.
My keys here, number one, I think which team handles the emotions early better is going to be put themselves in a position to take control of the game early on. You saw it with Buffalo a couple weeks ago. The first game they played after the Damar Hamlin, um, I guess we could call it an injury, a tragic event. I don't know. When they played the Patriots, they had the kickoff return for the touchdown. It was this huge emotional outburst and
Yeah,
outpouring, and it was crazy. And then they had this huge letdown afterwards. Just and which I think is a natural human reaction. And that, like, I don't even know as a coach if I could ask my players to be better than that, because it's just that is a very, very difficult moment, right? And then at the same time, they're still able to weather it and win the game. So in this case, again, which team can weather that early feeling of emotion and what is going on and the significance of the moment that they're in? Obviously, I think we'll have a chance to take control of the game early. Number two, I think which quarterback is going to avoid the costly mistakes, the sacks, the fumbles, and the picks, because both these guys get sacked a lot. And
mm-hmm.
when that's happening, propensity for fumbles goes up, propensity to throw a dumb interception goes up. And Allen, we've seen it a lot with him recently. We haven't actually seen the volume of interceptions from Burrow, but that doesn't mean it can't happen, right? So I
Very
think
true.
which quarterback avoids that better is obviously putting their team in a position to win the game. And then last one, can the Bills pressure Burrow? You mentioned your buddy starting that game on the O line because their O line is beat up, right? So can the
Yeah,
Bills create pressure? And Von Miller, we know, has been out, but guys like Ed Oliver have stepped up and they've been able to create pressure on quarterbacks. And so I wonder, can they get it done? Can they do that to Burrow? Because if they can, we've seen that's when the Bengals are very beatable. If you're not getting to Burrow, you're not going to beat them. His receivers are too good, and he's too good.
yeah,
So if the Bills have to create pressure if they want to win the game. I see this as just an absolute bloodbath. Just I feel like it's exactly what it was last year in the divisional round. Feel the same way. Bills fans probably not going to be very happy with me, but I'm picking the Bengals. I think Burrow is a better quarterback right now than Allen, and I wouldn't have said that 2 months ago. I might not have said it a month ago, but I'm telling you right now, I think Burrow's playing better. I think he's got a better chance of avoiding those interceptions and those fumbles, those turnovers, and the sacks, despite his O line being beat up. And I like Cincinnati. I'm going Cincinnati 36, Buffalo 35. Like, just barn burner. We see points, and it's a fun game. And at the end of the day, Cincinnati, scores for the win.
yeah. I agree with that. I got mine rolling a little different though. I got it going to OT. Final score 38-35. I think it's same thing that you were saying. It's gonna be just back and forth, back and forth. But I think it goes to OT, and we see something where Buffalo, fumbles the bag in OT, since he goes down. Money Matt kicks a field goal, wins the game.
It would be quite devastating for Buffalo, as good and talented as they are, to not even make the AFC Championship game would feel like a very, very big disappointment. To be honest, it would. It would feel very disappointing. And I'm sure they really obviously want to avoid that. They want to get there, but
Yeah.
we'd be setting up an AFC Championship rematch if we're both Bengals at Chiefs again. Which I'm sign me up for round 2.
Yeah, it's
Those
gonna be
games are
great.
all 3 of the recent games, the 2 games they played last year and the 1 game they played this year, lead you to believe that 4th game would be incredible. So I'm all for it.
All right, moving forward a little bit later in the day at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern. We got the Cowboys and the Niners. Both big defensive game for sure. I don't think my scoreboard says that all too much, but both good defenses we mentioned. They a lot of weapons on offense as well. It's gonna be a fun one for sure. What are your storylines and keys you got rolling in this one?
Dude, old school matchup. If you're a football historian, you're so happy with this game. I mean, this is 2 teams that have been playing each other in the playoffs for decades. Like, some of the greatest moments in football history have been Cowboys 49ers, right? I just love this matchup for the mystique and the legacy and the history, all of it. I'd love it. Just even seeing the blue and silver versus the red and
Yeah,
gold, like just those colors that
both
match
great,
up.
great uniforms.
Yeah, and I as someone who claims the Rams, like I don't like either one of these teams, right? But like, just as a football fan, just as a football historian, like, I love this matchup. I think it's so fun. Then also I like, I haven't heard a whole lot of people talk about it yet, but it's Dan Quinn versus Kyle Shanahan. Those 2 worked together in Atlanta when Dan Quinn was the head coach. Kyle was the OC, and they went to that Super Bowl together, 28-3. But they know each other very well from working together. I guarantee you there's a natural, camaraderie and rivalry there, and it's those 2 scheming each other up this week. That, like, Dan Quinn's one of the best defensive minds, and Kyle Shanahan's one of the best offensive minds. And then you flip it, and you're like, oh, we've got Kellen Moore, young, up-and-coming OC who wants to be a head coach. D'Amico Ryans, young, up-and-coming DC who wants to be a head coach. That's a really great matchup too. Like, I can't say it any other way. This is like such a
Yeah.
fun game to me with all of the stuff going on. We've got the Brock Purdy stuff. We've got Dak playing as well as he just did. You put all of it together, and it's a super fun game. So when I talk about keys here, number 1, how well is Dak going to play when he's being pressured? Because he will be. He will be pressured, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
This
of course.
Niners defense is too good. He got
Both
pressured in the playoff, and I didn't even mention this yet, but he got pressured in the playoff game last year, and this was a great playoff game last year in Dallas. If we all remember the spike and all that, yeah. Tough ending, right? So it's a rematch of all that, right? And that first time was unbelievable, really good game, right? So again, when we were looking at the rematch, how is Dak going to play when he's being pressured? Number 2, can Dallas stop the Niners' run game and force Brock Purdy to beat them down the field? I talked earlier about Brock Purdy needs to be a distributor. So if you're Dallas, you got to force him into the creator role. We have to create pressure. We can't let them run the football. And we also have to make sure that he's not just getting these easy throws. He needs to see stuff covered. We need to make him beat us vertically. And I know that sounds a little scary, and that, because they've got those weapons, but I guarantee you, like, I'm rather taking my chances right now playing in a one-on-one with Debo with the ball going vertical than I want to see him catching the ball in the open field and trying to tackle him, because his yak ability is off the charts. He's unbelievable with the ball in his hands. So I don't want the ball to touch his hands. I want to make him go earn it vertical. Fine. And if he beats us that way, I mean, it's like, hey, we got to kind of live with that one, because what I don't want to do is see that guy with the ball in the open field. Same thing with George Kittle,
Mhm.
right? Ayuk's the one guy that actually is a true, like, okay, we got to be careful with that guy as a critical threat, him
Yeah.
beating us down the field. Fine, right? Like, but for the most part, I think they have to force Brock Purdy to be the guy this week. They got to find a way to force him to into that creator role, because I think that's when you can get him to make mistakes. Maybe throw Trayvon Diggs an interception, right? Maybe fumble a ball when he's doing all that hero ball stuff running around, and Micah Parson comes and strips it from him, right? And then the last key, can Kellen Moore create some easy throws against that D'Amico Ryans defense like he did against Tampa? Dak was cooking. Dak was money. And early on, they were 3-and-out, 3-and-out. And then in the third drive, they got a little play action, and then it was 3-step, get the ball out of his hands. Get the ball out of his hands. Bow, bow, bow. And Dak just started. He got in that rhythm. And there are certain guys, it's like a streaky shooter, man. They get in that rhythm, and it's just everything is open. And that's how Dak played the rest of the night. So if Kellen Moore can create some of those easy throws, I think it can really shoot this Cowboys offense rolling. And I actually, because we're talking about this, him creating some of that stuff, we got a clip here that we can show from that Cowboys game against Tampa that maybe kind of helps illustrate what I'm showing here, or what I'm talking about. So you've got Dallas. This is a 1st and 10 from the 40 going in. This is after that Tom Brady interception in the end zone, right? That ensuing drive. Dallas is
Okay, yeah.
pushing it up the field, right? So they come out here after this motion. They're going to be in what we call Detroit pair, right? So 12 personnel, tight end at the bottom in the boundary, with another tight end sitting right off his hip, right? Those two are together. That's the pair. Dak is under center with the true Tony Pollard, true deep back there. They're going to motion this receiver across to create the pair. And then that's CeeDee Lamb over there, opposite side, right? So you're going to end up with essentially a 2-by-2 look with the two tight ends together and then the two receivers together on the opposite side of the field. Up front for Tampa, they're just running an over front, but then they're also going to walk up the extra backer who's more of a like 3-4 outside backer, edge rusher look, right? They're going to walk him up. And really, you can see based on this corner running with the receiver, they're in a man coverage look. They're just in a man-free cover one look, right? So it's really just a basic over front with a cover one look. You're going to have Antoine Winfield down here in the box responsible for this tight end. Sri Lanka is responsible for this tight end. The corner is going to run across with 85. You've got Carlton Davis at the top matched up with CeeDee Lamb, and then another safety who's deep, right? And then the backers, one of them is going to play the back. So we'll see kind of how it goes. Now Tampa is going to run a play action, or Dallas, I'm sorry, is going to run a play action boot. This is where I said last week, Dak is so good, man. This is where he's really good. He gets the ball out of his hands. He's really efficient. So they're going to get slam releases from both tight ends. They're really going to sell the run fake. And then the inside tight end is going to get up the field real vertical and run the corner route. CeeDee Lamb from across the field is going to run the dig that's essentially going to become the out route to that side. And then you're going to get the slam release from the other tight end. I believe that's Dalton Schultz, who's going to slam release into the flat right now. And you'll see what happens, right? You're going to create essentially a flood concept with the vertical, the 10-yard out, and the flat. We've seen this before, right? Very common concept. So Dak gives you the play action. He's really good with ball handling and that play action look, right? Boom. You can see the 3-level look from the tight ends and CeeDee Lamb. And everyone's on their man except, no one played this guy coming out of the backfield. No one played this other tight end, right? The backers, if you watch both linebackers, they're both flowing hard to run action. Number 9, who we said was supposed to be in man coverage, he's just going to get himself up the field. And Dak recognizes it instantly and gets the ball out of his hands. That's why I say he's really good in this spot. I mean, that's where you love Dak. Boom, gets it out. And now look at his tight end just running free as a bird. gets it all the way down to the 5-yard line, and that's a 35-yard, right? Look at it from this angle again. You can really see the run fake. See how Dak kind of does that where he turns his back to the defense. The best quarterbacks with run fakes turn their back to the defense so you can't see where the ball goes. And then he gives that empty hand, right? So
Yeah, he's holding
now,
on with the wall.
yeah. And now Levante Davis, 45 here, are running downhill. They don't see play action fake at all, right? Boom. And even the guys, even though everyone's matched up, this is the crazy part. Even if someone had taken the flat away right now, look at CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
He's going to be wide open, right? So even if number 9 does his job, takes the tight end to the flat, well, now I'm still outside the pocket. I'm beating this other defensive lineman here outside. And now I'm throwing the ball downfield for a chunk to CeeDee Lamb. So either way, we're feeling really good. And then look at the blocking downfield by CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz for their other tight end, Ferguson, who's actually the one who caught it. Look at the blocking. Look at bodies on bodies. That's the stuff, man, that wins you championships. That's the stuff that gets you those extra 10 yards. And now we're inside the 5 instead of, inside the 10. And it's just such a difference. So, I think if Kellen Moore can scheme up more stuff like that for Dak, obviously it's going to make his life easier and it's going to give them an extra edge here in this game. And they're going to really need it against that D'Amico Ryans defense because, I've been on here for weeks raving about how good that guy's defense is. And Dallas is going to need to empty the bag this week in order to win. But I think with all that being said, I don't think they've got enough. I'm going San Francisco 31, Dallas 21.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, you talked about George Kittle being a weapon, right? I said they need to feed that man a little bit more. I couldn't tell you what his stat line was last week, but I just feel like when they're playing through him, it's so much easier to get to Christian McCaffrey or Debo, just because he could take up so much in the middle of the field. For the Cowboys, I mentioned they got to play some good D. And George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, there's too many weapons on that offense. Ayuk, like, if they could contain them, hey, that's going to be huge for their success in this game. And then I think they need to use both their backs more. That's one way to keep that offense off the field. And last week, I don't think Zeke did all too much in general. I think they were rolling with Pollard most of the game. And this is a little ambitious in my eyes, but I think it'd be fun if we could see Brock Purdy run some pistol with Debo and McCaffrey. I don't know what his speed looks like, but I feel like that'd be fun to see.
What do you want to see, some zone read action?
Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to. He doesn't have to run. He could give it every time, but seeing that would be insane. Like even if he's just like looking over here and
That's
then
like
just
the old
flips it out,
school
like
Harbaugh Kaepernick offense. That's
yeah,
what you're
yeah,
talking about. Okay,
yep.
all right.
And a couple notes I had: the Cowboys have won 3 of their last 4 games, all by 6 or more points, and the Niners are on 11-game win streak, and then somewhere around half of those have been with our guy Brock Purdy. And my final score, I'm rolling Niners 40, Cowboys 24.
Ooh, you think they're gonna blow them out? For
Yeah,
real, for real.
same thing that you talked about last week. He's close in the beginning, and it's just too much.
Yeah, San Francisco. I think San Francisco is probably gonna come out of the NFC regardless.
Yeah.
They're just so dominant defensively. They got so many weapons offensively. Like I said, if Purdy just stays in his lane, I think. Um, but yeah, man, this should be a great divisional Sunday. I'm super excited. We got to close out the pod, and the only way we know how is with a banger of the week. And Jody, I believe it's your turn, bro.
Yeah, so I talked about this, I think, to you for the very first time we thought of this whole ending. And I'm gonna just roll with the song. I listened to that podcast again, and every time I get to the end, bro, the song it's a vibe, bro. So I'm giving you. It's called "Golden" by Harry Styles. It's a vibe, bro. I'm telling you. Just
It's a
go throw that
vibe.
on. Go listen to it.
Okay, I'll give it a listen.
But yeah, and closing out everything else besides our banger, besides our preview and reviews of all these games, Ray Ray, he's back taking us out. Catch y'all later.